In the late 1970s, thousands of Soviet tanks massed along the Iron Curtain, imposing armored behemoths threatening to overwhelm Western defenses. Only one soldier seemed capable of stopping them. He stood just 3 feet tall and weighed barely 23 pounds, but he could move at 560 miles per hour and strike from an angle no tank could defend against. For over a decade, he proved unstoppable, destroying target after target as military analysts were left stunned. Then, he disappeared. Yet as Moscow turns up the heat on Europe once more, this rugged veteran has come out of retirement to see off the Russian threat. Who is this deadly tank assassin? They call him Bill. As the Cold War approached its 5th decade, the Soviet tank threat was not just a case of numbers anymore. Military planners in the West knew all too well that their existing anti-tank weapons had a serious issue. They struck tanks head-on, their warheads flying straight into the thickest armor Soviet engineers could design. And that armor was rapidly improving. New reactive armor blocks detonated outward when struck, disrupting incoming warheads. Composite armor, layered steel with ceramics and other materials, dramatically increasing resistance to shaped charges. The arms race showed no sign of ending. Each generation of missile grew larger and heavier as it chased ever thicker armor. In the case of Sweden, this was a threat that would have to be faced alone. As a neutral nation, they couldn't simply purchase American solutions like NATO countries could. Their infantry battalions needed an anti-tank system powerful enough to defeat modern Soviet armor, but portable enough for soldiers to carry. In 1979, the Swedish Army commissioned Bofors to develop something entirely different. The project received a deliberately understated name: Bill. Bofors Infantry, Light and Lethal. Bofors engineers arrived at an innovative solution. Rather than building a more powerful warhead to punch through frontal armor, they would avoid that armor entirely. Their missiles would fly over the target and attack from above. While a tank's frontal armor might be made of several inches of hardened steel, its roof was never more than an inch thick. These upper surfaces simply didn't need heavy protection. No existing weapon could reliably attack from that angle. By striking downward onto this vulnerable area, even a relatively small warhead could achieve devastating results. The Bill missile carried its shape-charged warhead tilted 30 degrees downward from the missile's longitudinal axis. As the weapon flew, this angled charge constantly pointed toward the ground. The guidance system maintained a flight path approximately 2.5 feet above the gunner's line of sight to the target. When the missile passed directly over an enemy tank, a sophisticated proximity fuse detected the metallic signature below and detonated the warhead, driving a superheated jet of metal straight down through the thick roof armor. But that wasn't the only important advantage this overfly top attack profile offered. A tank in a hull-down position, concealed behind terrain with only its turret visible, remained completely vulnerable. Traditional anti-tank missiles needed a clear shot at the vehicle's body. The Bill simply flew over whatever obstacle protected the tank and struck from above. The complete system consisted of a height-adjustable tripod, the missile in its sealed launch tube, and interchangeable day or thermal night vision sights. Total weight reached just over 90 pounds, portable by a 2-man crew. A compressed gas charge ejected the missile from its tube at 160 miles per hour, virtually eliminating the dangerous backblast that revealed traditional launchers. Once clear, a solid fuel sustainer motor accelerated the weapon to 560 miles per hour. Wire guidance kept the system immune to electronic jamming. The gunner simply maintained the target in his crosshairs, while onboard computers adjusted the missile's flight path, trailing a command wire behind it across distances over 7,000 feet. Development proceeded smoothly through the early 1980s. Field trials began in 1985, and by 1988, the Swedish Army officially accepted the Bill into service. But Bofors needed to prove their unorthodox weapon to the international market. In October 1992, representatives from over 20 nations gathered at an Athens weapons exhibition. Bofors had prepared 4 demonstration scenarios, each one specially designed to showcase capabilities that conventional anti-tank missiles couldn't match. The first target was a radio-controlled Soviet-era tank, moving at nearly 24 miles per hour at a range of approximately 6,500 feet. The Bill's gunner tracked the moving vehicle through his thermal sight as the missile streaked across the range. The warhead detonated at a distance of just over 3 feet above the tank. the shape-charged jet penetrated the frontal turret armor from above, igniting ammunition stored inside. The explosion tore the turret apart, sending fragments of the hull scattering across the demonstration range. The second test directly compared the bill against a conventional weapon. An armored steel plate 3 inches thick was protected by a layer of reactive armor, the explosive blocks designed to defeat shape-charged warheads. First, a 105mm tank cannon fired at the target. The shell failed to penetrate. When the reactive armor detonated, it successfully disrupted the conventional projectile. Then the bill fired at an identical target. The missile's downward attack angle meant the shape-charged jet struck at a much steeper angle than the horizontal cannon round. The reactive armor's explosive force dispersed uselessly, unable to counter the vertical attack geometry. The warhead punched clean through both the reactive armor and the 3-inch steel plate behind it. Where the 105mm round had failed, the much smaller bill warhead succeeded. The third test proved perhaps most impressive. A tank mock-up sat in a hull-down position behind an earthen berm, with only the upper 30% of its turret visible, roughly 2 feet of target above the protection. Any gunner attempting a direct shot would hit the berm. The bill missile flew its elevated trajectory over the obstacle and detonated directly above the concealed tank, penetrating the turret from a distance of 2 feet. The demonstrations left military observers with little doubt. Orders soon followed from Austria and Brazil, with over 15,000 missiles produced by 1996. The bill had become the first operational anti-tank guided missile to successfully employ overfly top attack technology. The late 1990s brought new challenges. Explosive reactive armor was now standard on Russian vehicles, making the original Bill's single warhead less effective. Bofors answered with the Bill 2 and a tandem warhead design, 2 shape charges in rapid succession. The first destroyed reactive armor blocks, the second punched through the main armor underneath, both striking the same point with devastating precision. The upgraded missile also introduced 3 selectable firing modes. In basic mode, both optical and magnetic sensors guided the overfly attack against heavy armor. Non-armored mode disabled the sensors entirely, directing the missile straight at soft targets using an impact fuse. Soft target mode used only the optical sensor, detonating the warhead well above lightly armored vehicles to maximize fragmentation effects. Sweden upgraded to the Bill 2, then shelved the whole system in 2013. Wire guidance looked ancient compared to modern fire-and-forget missiles, outdated Cold War technology with no future. But 2021 brought a surprise. Sweden pulled the Bill 2 out of retirement. Events would soon explain why. In March 2023, photographs emerged from the Ukrainian front lines showing something unexpected. Ukrainian soldiers posed with RBS-56 Bill systems, weapons that no country had publicly announced transferring. The systems had arrived in secret, likely from Sweden, Latvia, or Estonia, along with training for Ukrainian crews. Eastern Ukraine gave the Cold War weapon a second chance. Ukrainian crews deployed Bill systems using the tactics Bofors engineers had imagined back in the 1980s. Defensive positions, flanking shots, engaging at 4,500 feet, hitting Russian tanks as they tried to cross open terrain. Wire guidance seemed outdated compared to modern fire-and-forget missiles, but it worked. Russian tanks equipped with improvised cage armor still couldn't stop the Bill's tandem warheads, and while newer systems struggled with Russian electronic warfare, the simple wire connection kept working. The Bill has traveled a long road from Cold War innovation to the 21st century battlefield. Its bold approach to attacking tanks from above opened the door for later weapons. Modern systems like the Javelin and NLAW use their own versions of top attack, proving the principle Bofors pioneered. In a world of expensive, high-tech weapons, the Bill's simple wire guidance stands out. The most effective answer isn't always the most sophisticated. Sometimes it's the one that refuses to play by existing rules. Bofors engineers wouldn't fight tanks head-on, and that decision created a weapon that still works decades later. The radical idea that dared to defy convention has proved more enduring than anyone could have imagined.